Well, hello, friends. So I'm going to be attempting something over the next week that is a bit of a challenge, but it's something that I've done before fairly regularly, actually. Uh, I have this experience when people ask me about my process, and I say, well, I dictate, so I write really fast. And they're like, oh, how long does it take you to write a book? And I say, 6 days. And they look at me like I'm some sort of two-headed monster. So to demonstrate that I'm not, in fact, a two-headed monster, I have decided to record the whole process. So this is going to be a 6-day challenge. I'm going to write a novel, about 120,000 words approximately, in 6 days. And the way I'm going to structure it is the way I always structure it. I'm going to write the beginning of the novel on the last work day of 1 week, and then I'm going to sit with it with a few chapters over the weekend to make sure I like the direction of it. And then Monday through Friday of the following week, I'm going to write approximately 20,000 words a day. And this is going to take me to 120,000 words. And it's going to be great. I'm going to document the process, though, for you. And we're going to get some, videos from each day, and hopefully it turns out. I've never really done anything like this sort of like multi-day vlog style. And so I'm a little bit nervous about it from like the video side. I'm not super nervous about it from the writing side because, like I said, I do this regularly. The question, though, that I'm sure all of you are asking is why? Why, Seth? Why would you do that to yourself? And the answer is actually really simple. Because I strongly believe that writing in these concentrated bursts is better for your creativity, it's better for your productivity, and it's better for your work. Cal Newport has a book called Deep Work, and he talks about this principle where when the human brain does something for an extended period of time, it optimizes for that thing. But when you divide up your time, your workday, with a lot of different distractions, it actually makes your work suffer. It makes the quality of your work degrade noticeably. And so, after reading that book, I started doing these 2 to 4 hour concentrated periods of writing. And what I discovered was that if I just kept going, if I just didn't stop, then I would soon have a book done. And not only that, but the quality of the book was better. It was more coherent. It was more cohesive. All of the different threads that normally get lost because of the sheer amount of time that passes over the course of writing a book, they don't get lost. Because for 1 week, all you think about is this book. It's the story. It's the characters. It's what's going to happen to them next. More than that, your brain does something really fascinating. Often people will talk about, how when they're writing their novel, they get to a certain point in the plot and they get stuck and they don't know how to resolve it. And they try this and they try that and they're not sure. What I've found is that once you get into a hyper-concentrated period of writing, dealing with the same characters, the same story, those threads naturally resolve themselves. Your subconscious figures out for you how to write the story. And so you end up with these very tight books, these very tight plots. And so I've discovered over time that this is just a better way to write, at least for me. Now, whether this would work for other people, I'm not 100% sure. I have a sneaking suspicion that it would. I think that a lot of people would actually benefit from this style. And what's interesting about it is that you don't have to do it in a week like I do, right? I'm going to write about 20,000 words a day, which again, over the course of 6 days, that's going to be my 120,000 word novel. But you don't have to do that. You could do half of that, 10,000 words a day, and it would take you 12 days instead of 6, right? You could take 24 days and only write 5,000 words a day. And that would still, in the course of a month, be a full-length novel. So I'm going to show you the hyper-concentrated version, which again is a 120,000 word novel in 6 days. And we're going to try it. We're going to see if it works. I'm going to report on whether I succeed or fail. So you're going to get in this video the sort of unadulterated version of my process. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy this. Yeah, let's get to it. Well, hello friends. How's it going? So today I'm going to be trying something a little bit different. This is going to be more of a vlog. And in this vlog, I'm going to be recording myself over the course of 6 days, writing a book. Front to back. Completely. My goal is, by the end of the process, to show you what it is that I do, which is typically write a book in 6 days. And that's all of the drafting and the majority of the editing as well. In fact, by the time the 6th day is over, I intend to have it completely done to the point where I'm going to be sending it out to my editor. I will be done with all of my revisions, and it's going to my editor for the copy edit, and then it can be published after that. And I have a particular process that I use for this, and I'm going to try to show that to you as we go. So today is not technically the first day. The first day was last Thursday, which was my last writing day of last week. And I always try to set it up so that my first writing day is the end of a week, and then I have time after the first writing day to make sure in my head that the story is going the direction I want, and I can work through various problems. Okay. And so what I did on Thursday is I did my plot, and I plotted out the story, and then I drafted the first 4 chapters. Right? That's enough of the book to give me a good sense of the direction I'm going, of my trajectory, but it also helps me. It's not so much that I have tons of rewrites to do when I go back if I didn't like it. So I use Plotter for my plot and for my plotting, and all I really do with that is I write a single like phrase for every chapter, and then sometimes I'll fill it out a little bit more. A beat per chapter, or I'm sorry, like 5 to 6 beats per chapter, and that's going to be my plot, and I'm going to just draft off of that. I have some stuff over here that I'll show you at some point, but today I am into drafting because it's Monday, and by Friday I will be done with drafting. Probably Friday evening I will be completely done, and I will do my last edits Friday night, and then that's it. Book's done, right? Thursday of last week, and then Monday through Friday of this week. 6 days, front to back, 120,000 words approximately, is going to be the complete book. So again, I'm inviting you to follow along as I do this. I'm going to talk a little bit about my process as I go. Right now, I'm about to get back to drafting. I have the first, I want to say 8 chapters done. I did 9 chapters. So I did 5 chapters this morning. And I'll talk about my schedule at some point too, because maintaining a locked schedule is super important when you're doing work like this. But I did 9 chapters this morning. I'm going to do 3 chapters before 5. And my goal is every day to be done by 5:00 p.m. and be completely done. So let's see if it works. All right, so I just hit about 20,000 words, a little bit over that, but I am now processing. I don't know if you can see that. I'm processing all of my files, and once those files are processed, I'm going to go ahead and transcribe them, and then once they're transcribed, then I can go through and edit. I'll probably do my editing tomorrow morning first thing, because that helps me get into the right mindset. Today I had a couple of extra things, so it took me a little bit longer to get my 20,000 words in than I was planning. But one of the things that I do to make sure that I'm getting my 20,000 words in during these periods of like super high production is I just keep a super tight schedule, right? I do the same things pretty much every day. Um, I just completely lock in, get rid of as many distractions as I possibly can, and and just prioritize writing as my most important thing. And for a lot of people, and even me when I started doing this kind of thing, it can be really hard to rationalize that. You think to yourself, "Oh man, I gotta do my, I've got to do my email, and I've got to, answer notifications and all of that kind of stuff, right?" And I have a ton of other stuff that I could be doing besides writing, but it's only for 5 days. It's not going to be the end of the world. I take an hour off to exercise and have lunch every day. I have and I can do a little bit then. I have time after 5 p.m. when I can do more. And so at the end of the day, a lot of this is just about priority. It's about how are you prioritizing what you're doing, and is writing a book a high priority for you? For me, it is, and so I'm going to write my book, and I am going to do that in 6 days. And so this is day number 2 of the 6-day sprint. Well, good morning. It is 5 in the morning, and I just got down here. I have my coffee. I brought some water. I have some pistachios because sometimes you need a little bit of a early morning pick-me-up. And today is day number 3 of my my writing a book in a week marathon. Yesterday I wrote 22,693 words. I have it written up here. So I track my word count as I write, just to make sure that I'm keeping a steady pace. And I also find it's just super encouraging. But today is day 3, and I'm starting my day by doing some editing on those 22,000 words. I thought this would be a good time to talk a little bit about my process, because part of writing a book in a week is editing and revising and doing things like that. And finding time to fit that in is really hard if you're editing like really large chunks of a story. And so what I've done is I've actually divided it up, and I've worked it into my normal workflow, so that instead of writing the whole book and then trying to edit the whole book and revise the whole book, I'm instead doing things progressively. And this has a couple of advantages, which I'll lay out for you. But essentially, my workflow is I draft, I then edit what I've drafted, and then I give it to other people so that they can edit as well. And then I go through and I revise what they've edited. So every day, I get up in the morning. If I have stuff to edit, if I didn't get to it the day before, I edit first. Then the second step is that I go through everything that has been edited by other people the previous day, and I check those things and I revise as necessary, and then I draft for the day. Okay, and so this provides this sort of recursive loop that allows me to fix the story as I go. What this also means is that every day I'm locking chapters that I have edited, other people have edited, and then I have revised, right? And I say, okay, now these are done. Now I will go through at the very end of the book, and I will double check everything, and I will have somebody else go through at the very end of the book and double check everything. But the point of these early edits and revisions is not just to, try and make the book better. Like that's a major part of it, but it's also to help me have a clear sense of where the story is going. Because I'm doing this loop, I'm getting immediate feedback on my story, and I'm getting immediate feedback on the direction that I'm heading, right? The trajectory
of it. I think that we often overlook the importance of trajectory in story. It's really easy to be like, well, I have this grand idea for a plot, and so I'm just going to force it through. But then when it comes to the reading experience, it's not fun. Whereas if you can write a story that has a great trajectory, where from the beginning, people are excited to read it because they like where it seems to be going, and then you can deliver on those promises, you'll have written a book that people just enjoy reading, right? The experience of reading it is good, and people will come back time and again for that experience. So I'm going to get started here. Like I said, I have my coffee, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to be working from 5 in the morning until about 6:15 when I'll go up and have breakfast and get my kids on the bus. So that's what we're doing this morning. Let's get to it. Today is the 4th day in my writing a book in 6 days attempt, process, I don't know. And because it's the 4th day, which means, again, I have 3 days left. I have today, I have tomorrow, and I have Friday. It's always good to take a moment and just assess where I am, because sometimes life happens, things come up, and my book writing process has to be extended slightly, it has to be shifted around, and so it's always good to just take a moment and assess. You don't want to spend too long doing that, right? One of the pitfalls or the traps that you can fall into when you are doing something like this is that you spend longer on the process than you do on the actual work. And that doesn't fly. You have to spend longer on the actual work than you do on the process. But as part of the process, I like to do an assessment. Where am I? So on my first day, I did all of my plotting. I got a good sense of where I was going to go with this book. And then I wrote the first 4 chapters. On the second day, I wrote 22,693 words, which was all the way up through chapter 12, I believe, and a little bit of chapter 13. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, I wrote 23,375 words. 23,375 words. Yeah. So, and that took me all the way up through chapter 21 with the first 500 words or so of chapter 22. So I know, because I plotted my book out, that I'm going to have about 45 chapters in this book. I say about because sometimes it's a little bit more than that. But 45 is my minimum, right? And as I'm looking at my plot, doing this assessment, the question is, can I actually get the rest of the story I want to tell into the remaining 24 chapters that I have left? Because again, I have 21 here. I want to get to 45. So I have 24 left to go, which means that if I write 8 chapters today, 8 chapters tomorrow, and 8 chapters on Friday, guess what? I'm going to be done. And since Monday I wrote 8 chapters and Tuesday I wrote 8 chapters, I have a pretty high likelihood of succeeding in that. The question is that going to be sufficient? Is that going to allow me to be successful? And it's always at this point when I'm doing this assessment, I'm halfway through, I'm about to start my writing for the 4th day. I'm halfway through this process. I start to think to myself, hey, maybe I should do a little bit more now. And the reason is because of fatigue, right? Fatigue starts building as you go through this process. When I started, the first day, the second day, even the third day, I was like ready to go. But anytime you do really concentrated work for a long period of time, whether it's physical labor or whether it's creative labor, you end up fatiguing, right? You end up building up just some exhaustion. Now, there are a couple of things that we can do to make sure that that's not going to be a problem. The first and most important is sleep. I know that this can be hard, but I completely rewrite my sleep schedule for weeks when I'm doing this. First of all, I just go to bed earlier. I don't like sleep. If I could, I would not sleep. In fact, if I could have a superpower, as lame as it sounds, that would probably be it. It would just be not sleeping, because you can get so much done. But sleep is vitally important. It is the foundation upon which pretty much all creative work is built. The next thing that's really important is doing or getting your food just right. You need to be eating enough food that you're full of energy, but not so much food that you are lethargic, right? And so there's this balance of make sure you're getting energy, make sure you're getting fuel for your body, but don't be eating so much that it puts you into a coma. And also don't just eat high sugar things, because even though it might feel like that's helping you, eating high sugar snacks, it's not. You'll burn out really, really fast on that. And so high protein snacks, fruit, that kind of stuff, that's sort of my go-to. Then the third thing that you really want to pay attention to is that you are giving your brain enough space. The reason you need to do this is because as you build up mental fatigue, the answer to building up mental fatigue is not actually going and doing something that's completely mindless. Like if you were to be writing a book in this concentrated way, and then you were to turn around and go and, you're tired on the third or fourth evening, and so you go and you just watch TV for a couple of hours, not helpful. That's actually going to harm your creative process rather than helping your creative process. Even if you're watching an anime or you're watching a TV show or you're watching a movie that you really love and that you find inspiring, it's not going to help. And it's because of the way that activity engages your brain. It doesn't. So instead, find things to do that engage your brain, but in a different way. So for instance, yesterday I baked an apple pie. Actually, I baked 2 apple pies because I cut too many apples and then was staring at this bowl of apples, and my wife walked by and was like, yeah, those aren't going to fit. So I was like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. Bummer. I guess we have to have 2 apple pies. But the point is that I did something that was, engaging my brain to a lesser degree than what I do, in my writing. But it engaged my brain because I had to read the recipe, I had to think about it, I had to, plan, and I had to try to execute on making this apple pie. And so it used my brain, but it was different. And when we do that, that's when our mental energy, our creative energy recharges, right? I'm not doing something that's super intensive, but I'm doing something that's different, but still using my brain. We often have this idea that we just need to turn off our brain for it to recover. Not true at all. Our brain needs to keep working. When we turn off our brain, it becomes that much harder to spin it up again, to do creative work. So the fourth thing that you need to be making sure that you're doing during these periods of really intense, concentrated work is exercising in some way, right? Get outside, go for a walk, do something, do some push-ups, do something that's going to get your blood flowing, but also, if at all possible, get outside. Yesterday was pretty bitterly cold, and so I didn't end up going outside, and I can already feel the drain. So what I'm going to do actually is, as soon as I'm done recording here and right before I get started, I'm just going to go step outside, and I'm going to stand outside for a couple of minutes. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to get some fresh air in my lungs, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get started. So, like I said, today is the 4th day. I am through chapter 21. I have 24 more chapters to go, and I'm excited to get to it. The story is really coming together, and there have been all of these really cool moments where I haven't known how I was going to solve a problem, but because I am so immersed in the story, the answers simply emerged, and they're pretty fantastic. I'm really excited about this book. I'm having so much fun with it. So, let's get to it. All right, so I am done with my afternoon session. Hit 20,000 words a couple minutes ago, and I'm now processing my audio. I'll then run it through my transcription system, and then do some editing. And I'll either do the editing today or tomorrow. Though today, because today is day number 4, I might actually go ahead and do a little bit more writing. I'm not sure. I'm at sort of a exciting point in the story, and I might capitalize on that momentum and just keep going. So I wrote this morning from 7:30 till about 12:10, and then I wrote from 2 until 4:40-ish, and that got me my 20,000 words, but I might do some more now, or this evening, I mean. And the reason I might do more this evening instead of just waiting until tomorrow is because the more I can do now, the less I have to do on Friday, which means that if I'm slower on Friday, because that's going to be at the very tail end of my week, I'll have done, over 20,000 words a day, every single day of the week, leading up to it. And so anything that I can do now, while I'm excited about the story, while I'm fresh, while I have energy, I should do now so that I don't have to do it later. Does that make sense? So that's part of this whole process, is just understanding that as you're managing energy levels and as you're managing all of this stuff, that you don't necessarily have to stick to your schedule precisely as long as you're working ahead, right? I don't want to get to 10,000 words and be like, I don't feel like it, and scab off. No, I want to stay the course and get my 20,000 words. But if I'm feeling spry and want to do a little bit more, I can do a little bit more. Well, hello, folks. It is late. It's like 10 something. And I had a little bit of time this evening, and I was excited about where the story was going. Had a particularly sort of tricky little transition that I needed to make, and so I was excited about writing. So I did. I got in 3 more chapters, which is fantastic because, part of the challenge of this whole a book in 6 days is that life happens, right? Sometimes life gets in the way, and so I always like to seize momentum when I have it, when I'm really excited about writing, and I just keep going. And that's what I did tonight. I got 3 more chapters in, which is awesome. That should take me I want to say to like being done with chapter 33, um, which is great because it means I have like 13 more chapters to go. So if I write 8 tomorrow, which is, again, that's my standard, then that means I only have 5 on Friday. And I can do 5 in a morning's worth of work, which is perfect because I have some meetings in the afternoon. And so if I can do that, right, 8 tomorrow, 5 the next day, totally achievable, then I'll be done. I'll have written my book in 6 days. So we'll check in tomorrow morning and chat a little bit, and we'll see where we end up. But right now, I'm going to finish processing this, and I'm going to head to bed. Good morning. Well, it is day number 5. And I think I'm going to make it. It's always a bit touch and go in the middle of any novel, because sometimes, stories just don't cooperate. Sometimes they just don't work the way that you originally thought they were going to work. And so it's always a little bit, it's always a bit sketchy as to whether or not the story is just going to cooperate. Well, in this case, the story's been cooperating just fine. In fact, it's gotten better and better and better, and I've had more and more clarity around it. Yesterday was day number 4, and after writing the 20,000 words that I had planned, I just ended up being really inspired, and I was in the middle of a transition, and I realized that I knew exactly how I wanted it to go. And so instead of waiting, I canceled my evening plans, and I sat down and I wrote some more. I wrote another 3 chapters, which means that I only have about 13 chapters left. My goal today is to write 8 chapters. Again, that's the standard. I'm trying to do a little bit over 5 chapters in the morning and then 3 chapters in the afternoon, and I'm going to stick to that schedule. Now, if I can squeeze in some extra chapters, maybe this evening, then I'm going to do that as well. Because, again, momentum is one of the most important parts of this whole process. You want to capitalize on your momentum as much as possible. And for me right now in my life, since I'm doing this writing a book in 6 days process, the most important thing is getting this book done. And so everything else can wait. Everything else can move over to the side. And again, sometimes life happens and there are things that are more important, and you have to delay the process. I've been fortunate that that's not been the case. But if it was, that's okay. If something came up today, let's say, I was writing and something came up and I had to go and deal with it. Cool, no problem. Just because I'm aiming to write this book in 6 days, that's just a framework. It's just a way of achieving the goal. And if I have to adjust, then I have to adjust. If it takes me 7 days, if it takes me 8 days, if it takes me 12 days, right? If instead of 1 week it takes 2, great, no problem. But this time I've been fortunate, and nothing has come up, and hopefully nothing will come up. And that means that by Friday afternoon, I'm going to be done. This book that I started, last week, like I said, I started it on Thursday because I knew I wouldn't be writing it all on Friday. I started it on Thursday. I took the weekend and I enjoyed it. I didn't worry about my writing at all. And then from Monday until today, which is Thursday, I've just been writing consistently. 20,000 words a day, a little bit over 20,000 words a day. 8 chapters a day. That was my schedule. I ended up writing 30,000 words yesterday, and that has put me ahead, which is pretty cool. So I'm about to get into my stream. Once again, I stream Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I guess I should probably say Eastern Time because of daylight savings, the giant scam that it is. Anyway, I won't get on that soapbox. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so today is Thursday, so it's the 5th day of my 6 days of writing a book, and I'm making great progress. However, I ran into a bit of a problem, which is that there was a childcare hiccup, and so I'm going to lose some hours this afternoon because I'm going to be watching my kids, which is awesome. I'm going to have a great time hanging out with them. But, this is one of those things, those times when life just happens and you've got to do some adjustment. So I've, reset my expectations a little bit for what I'm going to get done this afternoon, but I am about to kick off my sprints for the afternoon. I'm no longer on stream, and instead I'm going to be trying to get 3 or 4 sprints in before I watch my kids. And then this evening, I'm going to try to sneak back down here and get some more writing done. To make up the difference. But I'm making good progress. I am probably 90,000 words in, which means or 93 or 4,000 words in, which means I actually only have another slightly less than 2,000 or 20. Wow, I can't math. That's why I'm an author, not a mathematician. But slightly less than 20,000 words left to go on this manuscript. I'm super pumped. This is going to be good. So yeah, that's where I am. Well, good morning. Today is day number 6, and I am tired. As you can imagine, as you go through a sprint like this, fatigue just builds. And so by the end of the week, I've been writing like a madman all week. It's been great. I honestly feel really great, but I've definitely built up some fatigue, and I can sense my brain sort of responding a little bit slower than it normally would. But that's okay, because I am almost there, folks. Today, I have about 5 chapters worth of work to wrap things up. So that's maybe 12,500 words. I'm about to kick off my stream. We're going to work hard today, and I expect by the end of the stream to be 100% done with this book. Drafting, at least. So at that point, I will have completed the 6-day to write a novel challenge. It will have been Thursday last week, and then Monday through Friday this week. Yesterday, I didn't get quite as many words in as I wanted. There were some disruptions, but that's life. That's what happens. And so I just shifted when I was doing the work. And instead of working yesterday afternoon as much as I wanted to, I worked a little bit in the evening. I didn't get as many words as I wanted to either. I only did 17,669 words instead of the normal, 22,000 that I was aiming for. But remember, on Wednesday, I had been feeling inspired, and so I did a little bit of extra work in the evening. And I picked up 30,000 words instead of 20,000 words. And that buffer is what allowed me to just, adapt to the situation yesterday to make sure that I didn't have to cram today, which is good because by the end of the week, you're always going to be tired, right? It's a lot of work. This process is just very intensive, but also wonderful. I feel so good about this story and where it's ended up. And as I wrap it up today, I'm excited to wrap up these threads and to plant the seeds for the story that comes next. So we're going to get to it. We're going to kick off the stream and start working. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure, and and I'll be back with you once we've wrapped it up. Well, hello. It's just about 1:20, and as you can see, my computer is off. And my computer is off because I'm done. I think I might have a little bit of editing to do, a few things to tweak, maybe about 1,000 words, maybe a little bit more than that, to add. As I was finishing the manuscript, I had a couple of thoughts of ways that I could improve it, right? And I'll do that tonight or later this afternoon sometime. But I'm done. The manuscript is drafted. It is mostly edited. It's actually all edited except for the last 4 chapters, or the last 5 chapters, which I just finished today. But by tomorrow morning, those will be edited as well, and I'll be done. So I anticipate handing it over to my second round of editing, my copy edit on Monday, and otherwise I'm not going to be touching it, right? So that, my friends, was a 115,000 word book in 6 days. Now, it ended up being slightly shorter than I anticipated. And the reason for that was because based on sort of where the cadence was, I realized that I wanted to do more with one of the scenes. And so I ended the book. I was unsure whether I was going to end the book at the beginning of the scene or at the end of the scene. And I realized that I wanted to do more with the scene. And so I'm going to leave it for the next book. But yeah, I'm done. So I'll probably do a bit of a retrospective at the end of this, and then and just talk about the whole process. But otherwise, that is it. A book in 6 days, and it's great. Like, I'm genuinely happy with how it turned out. So that's always a good thing too. Well, hello everybody. It is Monday, and I finished my novel last Friday. So this is the week after I finished my book, and I did. I finished it on Friday afternoon, and then I went and I didn't write, and I didn't write until this morning. I wrote something this morning, but for something else. And I sat on it over the weekend. And I sat on the book to try and understand whether I liked it, whether I needed to make changes. Sometimes after I do this process, I have to make a lot of changes. Sometimes after I do this process, I don't have to make changes at all. And this was one of those latter times when I wrote the book last week. I finished it, and I was really happy with it. And I sat with it over the weekend, and my opinion didn't change. There were a couple of things that I thought, I better expand these or improve these. Right. And so
today, apart from a few slight edits, I added a few hundred words to one scene, right? But that's it. That's literally it. I'll do some final checks and stuff like that, but for the most part, this book is done. I could ship it as it is now, and I would be totally happy with it. I think it would be up to my standard. And if you've read any of my other books, you understand what that standard is. Now, the main reason that I could do this is because I use a process of editing that includes a lot of other people. And they read through the book literally as I write it. They are reading the previous day's work, and they are making edits, and they're making changes. And that is super helpful for me, because what it does is it allows me to course correct as I am going. You know, it's really hard when you're writing something to know whether it's going to be good or not. But if you have immediate feedback, which my process gives me, then you do know if it's going to be good or not, and you do know where you need to make corrections, you do know where you need to make changes. And so that's part of this whole process, is that every day after I write, I upload my chapters onto Google Drive, and I have other people who read them and then tell me if there are any major problems. And as I go through and I look and I see, okay, are there major problems, or is this small editing stuff that I can fix? Then I know, am I off or am I good? And in this case, it went smoothly. I was able to progress through, and I had no major changes to make. I did have one slight issue. I didn't know which name. I don't want to spoil the book, but there's a naming issue in the story, and I didn't know which name to use, and I used one name instead of the other name for a section, and then I went back and changed it. And I liked it changed much, much better. It was a lot smoother. The read was just better. And so I made that change. Otherwise, I literally haven't touched it, except for a couple hundred words today. And that's it. And this book is essentially done, right? Front to back, 6 days. Thursday, 2 weeks ago, and then Monday through Friday of last week, done and dusted, ready to ship. And, you know, this is a process that you can do too. It's not actually that complicated. It's not necessarily easy, because it requires, you know, long periods of concentration and focus and being willing to just ignore all distractions, but it's not complicated. Now, what am I going to change? There's a question that we always ask ourselves, and that is, what is one thing that I can do better? What is one thing that I can improve? And I did find something in this iteration that I think I can add to my system to make sure that I'm continually getting better. In previous versions of this, 6-day to write a novel sprint, I've kept to my schedule pretty religiously. And I've tried to take as much time as I need to rest in between each major sprint, because I know that if I just write at the very beginning and burn myself out, then I'm not going to be able to complete the story. I'm going to slow down too much towards the end, right? So it's about pacing yourself even as you're like rushing through. However, on Wednesday of last week, I was feeling really inspired, and I decided that I was just going to keep going. Because the previous iteration, I had kept to my schedule religiously, but then something happened, and it set me back by like a day and a half, and so I didn't actually make my time. Like, I didn't write the novel in 6 days. It took me 8 days. And you might think to yourself, Seth, the difference between 6 days and 8 days is like inconsequential. Like, it literally doesn't matter. And you would be correct. But I set out to write a book in 6 days. And so I want to write the book in 6 days. Because if I wanted to write the book in 8 days, I would have said, I want to write the book in 8 days. The reason I think it matters so much is because as soon as I start to give myself the excuse that, a couple extra days, inconsequential, it doesn't matter, then 8 days is going to turn into 12 days. And 12 days is going to turn into 24 days. And I know this experientially. I know this in my own life, and I know this from observing other people. As soon as we get rid of that deadline, guess what? We won't use it as a deadline. We will happily allow ourselves to just slip. We'll happily allow ourselves to just stretch it out as long as it feels comfortable. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to write a book in 6 days. And the pressure is part of the reason that this actually works. So, because life happened, I didn't get to write it in 6 days. And so this time, when I was feeling motivated, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not too tired. I'm feeling motivated to continue the story. I have the time. I'm going to go and I'm going to write. And I wrote an extra 3 chapters that evening, on Wednesday evening, which put me at 30,000 words instead of the 2,200 that I would have had otherwise. And then, sure enough, on Thursday, when I had a meeting that was really important and I had to take, I didn't get behind. Because all of a sudden, even though I missed my word count for Thursday, I had already made it up with an extra 10,000 words on Wednesday, above and beyond what I was expecting. And so this is something that I'm going to carry forward into my next iteration. I'm going to keep this new rule in place, which is that if I'm not too tired and I am feeling motivated, I can keep writing. I don't have to stick to my schedule perfectly. And this is going to help offset those times when, life just happens and I am not able to hit my word count for the day. Overall, this was good. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And, again, this process is usable by anybody, right? You don't have to do it as intently as I do. You don't have to set a 20,000 word count for your day, but you can do it too. You can just set your word count, pick how many days it's going to take you, and not allow anything to disrupt you during the time when you're supposed to be writing. And by the end of however many days you set, you're going to have a book. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting or illuminating or maybe helpful. If you have any questions about the whole process, definitely leave them in the comments below. I highly encourage all of you to try this. Whether it's for a full-length novel or something shorter, doesn't matter. You should give it a try. And then you should let me know how it goes. You should tell me in the comments if it worked or not. As always, thank you all so much for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.